Students, I hope you remember before we went for the summer vacations, the last chapter that we discussed with you was analytical chemistry. That was the practical oriented chapter, and in that chapter I discussed with you how we identify cations. Hopefully you remember the various cations which are to be identified in the laboratory in your syllabus are ferrocene, ferricine, cupricine, leadine, zincine, calciumine and ammoniumine. I told you that ferrous, ferric and cupricine, these are colored ions. So today we will try to demonstrate to you how you will be doing this practical or how you will be identifying these reagents in the laboratory. As I told you, for the analysis of cations, the reagent to be used for analysis are sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide. And what was the criteria for analysis? There will be 2 points of observation while identifying the cations by using sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide. These are the color of the precipitate and solubility in sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide when dissolved in the lesser amount and in excess. So today we will try to demonstrate to you how do we identify cations, basically the colored ions, in laboratory. But before that, we try to revise and let you recapitulate the things that were discussed before the school closed for the summer vacations. First colored ion which is to be identified is a ferrous ion. Now, as I told you, the ferrous salts are generally green in color. How it is to be identified? We will take the salt solution of ferrous ion or a ferrous salt. How do we prepare the salt solution? By dissolving the salt in water. So, we will take the salt solution. To the salt solution, we add sodium hydroxide solution. And when we add sodium hydroxide solution, what do we observe? Insoluble green color precipitate of ferrous hydroxide are observed. This precipitate, when dissolved in excess of sodium hydroxide, they still remain insoluble. Similarly, when we test by using ammonium hydroxide, we will take the salt solution. To this we add ammonium hydroxide solution. First criteria for observation will be the color of the precipitate. We will observe insoluble green color precipitate of ferrous hydroxide. Insoluble green color precipitate of ferrous hydroxide will be observed. This precipitate remains insoluble in excess of ammonium hydroxide. Similarly, for ferric ion, when the salt solution is dissolved in sodium hydroxide solution, we observe insoluble yellowish red color precipitate of ferric hydroxide. When these are dissolved in excess of sodium hydroxide, the precipitate remains insoluble. When we test ferric ion by using ammonium hydroxide solution, we will observe insoluble yellow red precipitate of ferric hydroxide are observed, and the precipitate remains insoluble in excess of ammonium hydroxide solution. So I think the observation criteria must be very clear. We have to observe the color of the precipitate and the solubility in the lesser amount and in excess of sodium hydroxide solution. Now we will try to demonstrate to you this practical. Now before we start doing the practical, let me first of all show to you the all reagents that we will be using. This is a reagent bottle. As you can see over here, sodium hydroxide is written. So this is a reagent bottle of a sodium hydroxide. Then this is a reagent bottle of ammonium hydroxide. Then we have prepared the 3 salt solution for you. This is a ferrous sulfate salt solution. How it is being prepared? By dissolving ferrous sulfate in water. Then this yellowish color solution is of a ferric chloride solution. You can see the difference in the color. This is ferrous sulfate with a slightly greenish tinge, ferric chloride solution with a slightly yellowish tinge. Then we have a copper sulfate solution. You can see the color, it is blue in color. So in our syllabus of the class 10th, we have a 3 colored ion. These are ferrous ion of a green color, ferric ion of a yellow color, and cupric ion of a blue color. Now how to perform the practical? Of course, you will be doing these practicals when you come to the lab. Once the lockdown opens, definitely you will be coming to the lab. But before that, we are demonstrating to you how do we carry out this practical. Now, this is this is a test tube holder and a test tube. All of you are very much accustomed with these apparatus in the lab, as we are again frequently coming to the lab in the class 9th. What we will be doing? We will be taking a ferrous sulfate solution. This is ferrous sulfate solution. We have taken the ferrous sulfate solution in a test tube. You can see over here how it is to be tested by using sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide. This is a sodium hydroxide bottle. What we will be doing, we will be taking a sodium hydroxide bottle in a, Mr. Dheeraj will be helping me. You can see this is sodium hydroxide bottle. Thomas, you can also come. You can see this sodium hydroxide bottle. This sodium hydroxide will take sodium hydroxide in a, will insert that sodium hydroxide solution through this dropper into the ferrous sulfate solution. You can see this. When we add the ferrous sulfate, went to the ferrous sulfate solution, we add sodium hydroxide. What do you observe? We observe green color precipitate of a ferrous hydroxide. See over here, it's a green color precipitate. Now, when we dissolve this ferrous sulfate in excess of sodium hydroxide, you will observe the precipitate remains insoluble. Can you see this? Now just see this test. We have taken the salt solution plus sodium hydroxide. What do we observe? Insoluble green color precipitate, so ferrous hydroxide. Name the green color precipitate, ferrous hydroxide. And the precipitate remains insoluble in excess of sodium hydroxide solution. Now, in another test tube, what you have to do during the exam time, you have to put it in the test tube stand like this and has to be kept in a demonstrative manner. So, this over here will be kept in this manner. So, this is the first test for ferrous ion. Now, another test for ferrous ion will be using a test tube. To this, we will be taking a ferrous sulfate solution. This is a ferrous sulfate. Now, in this, again, we will be adding sodium hydroxide solution. We will be adding the ammonium hydroxide solution. So, we will be taking ammonium hydroxide. Just see over here, ferrous sulfate, we add ammonium hydroxide. Here again, the green color precipitations are observed. Green color precipitates will be observed, which remains insoluble in excess of, just see this, precipitates are the solid substances which settles down while carrying out the practical. So see the green color precipitates of a ferrous sulfate. So you can see over here, the precipitate remains insoluble in excess of sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide. Just see this one. This is in sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide. The precipitates colors are green and they remain insoluble in excess of sodium hydroxide as well as in ammonium hydroxide solution. I think this identification of ferrous ion must be very, very clear. Now, another radical which has to be identified in the class 10th is a ferric ion. How will we identify the ferric ion? Again, the process will be same. We will be holding the test tube in a test tube holder and then we will take ferric chloride solution into that, and to that solution we will be adding sodium hydroxide once and ammonium hydroxide other time. This is, as you can see over here, a ferric chloride solution. What is to be done? We will take ferric chloride solution in a test tube. We will take a ferric chloride solution in a test tube. This is ferric chloride solution. We will take the ferric chloride solution in test tube. You can see over here, the solution of ferric chloride is being taken in a test tube. Now what we will do? This is a sodium hydroxide solution. We will add sodium hydroxide solution to ferric chloride solution. Just see over here. What is the color of the precipitate? Yellowish red. Can see? Precipitates are settling down. These are the solid substances which settles down during any test over here. So precipitate settles down over here. See over here. What is the color of the precipitate? It will be yellowish red color precipitate. I think this must be very clear. So ferric chloride test in sodium hydroxide must be very clear. We are putting again this into the demonstration. Then we will take the another test tube. In this test tube, what is to be done? We will again take a ferric chloride solution. We will take ferric chloride solution. So here again a ferric chloride solution is being taken. Now to this ferric chloride solution we will be adding ammonium hydroxide solution. When we add ammonium hydroxide to the ferric chloride solution, this is ammonium hydroxide. Just see over here. When we add ammonium hydroxide, what is observed? Yellowish red color precipitate will be observed, and these precipitate, as you can see over here, are settling down. So in this observation of ferrous ion and ferric ion, you can see that we have tested for ferrous ion, then in sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide, and ferric ion in sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide solution. So identification of ferrous ion and ferric ion must be very clear. Is it clear? Good. Now we will be identifying. Now the third colored ion which we have to identify is a cupric ion. As we all know, the cupric salt are blue in color. So what we will be doing over here? Again we will prepare a salt solution of a cupric ion. How? By dissolving the cupric sulfate in water. To the cupric salt solution, we, in the first test tube, add sodium hydroxide solution. What do we observe? Insoluble bluish white precipitate of cupric hydroxide are observed. What is the color of the precipitate? Bluish white. Name the precipitate cupric hydroxide. When we dissolve the precipitate in excess of sodium hydroxide, the precipitate remains insoluble. To the second test tube, we again take the salt solution. We add ammonium hydroxide solution into this. Again we will observe insoluble bluish white precipitate of cupric hydroxide. When we dissolve the precipitate in excess of ammonium hydroxide, the precipitate in this case gets soluble. I told you why? Because it will be due to the formation of tetraamine copper complex salt. Suppose it is copper sulfate, so it will be tetraamine copper sulfate. But the precipitate in this excess will be soluble, and what do we observe? In this case, deep blue color will be observed. Deep blue color solution will be observed in this case. I think it must be very clear. It was already discussed with you earlier. Now we will try to do this one also. What we do? We will take a salt solution of copper in a test tube. This is a copper sulfate solution. This is being taken in a test tube. You can see it is slightly whitish in color. Now what we will do? To the first test tube, we will add sodium hydroxide solution. So we will add sodium hydroxide solution into this. When we add the sodium hydroxide solution, you will see the white color precipitate will be observed in this case. So when we add sodium hydroxide solution, you can see over here white color precipitates are coming. So white color precipitates will be observed. Just see over here, it is bluish white precipitate settling at the lower part of the test tube. These bluish white precipitate are of copper hydroxide. Now I dissolve this in excess of sodium hydroxide solution. What you observe? The precipitate still remains insoluble. Just observe over here, bluish white precipitates are insoluble in excess of sodium hydroxide solution. So I think the observation in sodium hydroxide must be very, very clear. Now we take another test tube. To this test tube, we again add copper salt solution, or we may say cupric salt solution. So we will take cupric salt solution in the another test tube. You can see over here, we have taken the cupric salt solution. Just see over here, the cupric salt solution is taken. Now we will take ammonium hydroxide. We will add ammonium hydroxide solution into this test tube. Just observe over here, ammonium hydroxide will be added and added in this test tube over here. How do we test this one? You can see over here, blue color precipitates are observed. Difference in the blue color, earlier was a lightish white blue color. Here in this case, a blue color precipitates are observed. Just see, blue color precipitates are observed. It is very clear, and it's a deep blue color. When we dissolve in excess of ammonium hydroxide solution, just see, the precipitates are getting soluble. So this is an identification of a cupric ion over here. So identification of ferrous ion, ferric ion and cupric ion. Just see over here, this is a ferrous ion. What was the color of the precipitate? Light green color precipitate. Then ferric ion, yellowish red color precipitate. Both the precipitates were insoluble in excess of sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide. In cupric ion, just see the difference in the color. With sodium hydroxide, bluish white precipitate are observed. With ammonium hydroxide, the precipitate are deep blue, bluish white, but they get soluble by deep blue coloration due to the formation of tetraamine copper ions over here. Tetraamine copper ion over here. So I think All this must be very, very clear. Fine. So today we have done with you identification of the ferrous ion, ferric ion, cupric ion. In the next lecture, we will be trying to identifying the colorless ion, which will be lead, zinc, calcium, and the ammonium ion. By that time, you revise your work from the book and try to learn all the tests for the cations. Thank you.